Hey, mahal everyone. Welcome back again to the Broadway Saiyan YouTube channel. I am your host 40 and we are back with another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia focusing on the global version. In today's video, Kefka good or not good? So is this wily insane clown gonna be good or not good when he finally comes out to us within a few days on the global version of the game? So what does Kefka bring to global? So he's gonna be the first debuffer to inflict HP silence among several other debuffs to further cause chaos and madness to enemies. So that's right, first HP silence debuffer. He has a good brave shaving ability in the form of Meteor as long as you have his weapon passives, and we did discuss this in the character prep event video, so I'm going to be leaving the link to that video on the video description as well as the pinned comments of this video. Strictly using non-elemental magic helps him avoid issues with enemies who resist certain elements. So that's right, his Meteor and his Light of Judgment actually inflict magic damage, but it's non-elemental. So unless the enemy resists actual magic, you don't have to worry about them resisting elements with Kefka because Kefka doesn't use any elements. And finally, the other thing that Kefka does bring to global is bringing happiness to our boy Square Enix Joshua as he's waited for this character's release. So yeah. So let's take a look at Kefka versus other debuffers, and this is taking into account 15 and 35 CP. So the way I'm going to be doing this is just looking at the debuffs alone and then giving kind of like my verdict or my opinion on it. So if we take a look at Kefka's debuffs, with his Trine, you're getting that blind and HP silence for 2 turns, and then with his Light of Judgment, you're getting a 30% attack, defense, and speed down for 4 turns. Now versus Ferris's debuffs, so her Cannon Fire Plus, I'm going to go straight into her Cannon Fire Plus. It dispels all buffs, and then she has a large chance to inflict poison, 30% attack, defense, and max brave down for 8 turns. So what is my verdict on Kefka versus Ferris debuff wise? So as a raw debuffer, I'm gonna have to hand it to Ferris because she wins due to not only having that dispel, but she has more debuffs to inflict right off the bat, and then she also has that longer turn duration because 8 turns is a long time. However, she still needs to master Cannon Fire, so she still needs to set this up to be able to maximize her potential as a debuffer. Also, Kefka does have a better damage output than Ferris, so he actually deals more brave damage, and he has that clutch with blind and HP silence. So what I mean by clutch is that because Kefka inflicts an HP silence, let's say you're in a tough battle, you're doing an EX stage or a high level Lost Chapters hard mode, right? And you have Kefka on your team, and you notice that the boss, their brave is glowing purple. So you know what that means. That means it's targeting one of your characters that's probably going to KO it. Kefka comes in as a clutch because he can use his Trine and inflict blind and HP silence. So then you're saved from that HP attack for 2 turns, unless the boss has a way to remove debuffs. So this is why I refer to those particular debuffs that he has as clutch debuffs, because he will save you in certain fatal situations. Alright, so Kefka versus Vanille, another popular debuffer currently in the global version of the game. So, again, we already know what Kefka does. So versus Vanille, her Deep Protect inflicts a 40% defense down for 3 turns and then a 10% attack down for 3 turns. So my verdict is hands down as a debuffer and damage dealer, Kefka is going to be winning this against Vanille. However, Vanille does have Dispel, which I didn't mention, but she has Dispel to deal with enemy buffs, and she also has that Brave Battery mechanic, which Kefka doesn't have with Dispel, again, provided that you have the character's weapon passives. So that is my thoughts on Kefka versus Vanille. And finally, Kefka versus Tidus. And yeah, I do consider Tidus a debuffer. I have actually seen him brought to a particular harder EX events that we've recently had, such as the Lena one, as a debuffer. So Tidus' slash combo, provided that you have his 35 CP, inflicts a 25% attack, defense, and small speed down for 6 turns. So my verdict is we both have the same type of debuffs with their second abilities. Kefka's are better with slightly stronger debuffs because his are a 30% reduction, whereas Tidus's last 2 turns longer. And then as far as damage output wise, Kefka's is still better brave damage output wise, especially with Meteor, but the thing about Tidus is that he's like a machine gun. He's a turn stealer, so he will quick hit and then slash combo, quick hit, slash combo. So he's, as far as that, he's more of a high frequency damage dealer compared to Kefka, but debuffer wise, that is the comparison right there. So Kefka's pros and cons, what are his pros? So again, clutch debuffs. can be useful to avoid those fatal situations. So if the boss is about to knock one of your guys out because it's built up enough brave, Kefka can come in and just silence him from that HP attack. He softens up enemies well with his debuffs, so he has that attack, defense, and speed debuff with his Light of Judgment. He has good brave damage output, especially with Meteor. Meteor's damage output, I believe, is like at 200 or 220%, which is pretty good. And then he's a great option for various teams as he doesn't conflict with buffers. So he doesn't have any type of buffs that he gives to himself that would be overridden by another support. So I feel like Kefka could actually be slapped onto a majority of teams and could play well in any team setup. Now, what are his cons? So he has no self buffs. So Kefka has no way of improving his damage output or improving his defense or speed or anything like that. Nothing like that whatsoever. And then with level 60 recently out, he may see minor usage outside of his event unless you pull for his weapons. And even if you do, he might become kind of like a niche type of a character that you could throw in there because level 60 is already out. And then it is going to be a while before he gets his level 60, because since he was placed later in the order of release on the global version, it will generally mean that we're probably going to be seeing his lost chapters a little bit later than usual, but who knows? We have seen that the timeline for global has changed a bit, and we might actually get his earlier. We don't know, but yeah, it's going to be a while before he gets his level 60. So that's going to be the pros and cons on Kefka. So final thoughts and tips. So he's already an excellent debuffer. So you want to focus on farming attack plus 108 and max brave plus 330 to further increase his brave damage output. Some sample team comps I gave are Kefka, Saz, and Sephiroth. Sephiroth and Kefka could actually work really well because Sephiroth's permanent debuff with his Genova unique buff reduces the enemy speed, and if you pair that up with Kefka's Light of Judgment debuffs, the enemy will probably hardly take a turn. And then Saz is there for buffs to increase both characters' damage output. And then you can also go with Kefka, Lena, and Kuja. Lena is there because she actually inflicts that initial brave debuff, which is kind of rare to see. So that could work well with Kefka. And then you have Kuja there just for raw damage. So pulling for him now is definitely a future investment. Because once he gets his level 60 awakening, Kefka does become an even better debuffer, and then he'll also have access to his EX weapon later on. This gives him a unique debuff called Ridiculous Clown, which lowers the enemy's attack, defense, and speed, and also deals brave damage every turn. And because it's a unique debuff, it's framed, it will also stack with the rest of his debuff. So that's pretty cool. So he becomes a lot better at level 60. So if you guys invest in him now, just know that you are investing on a future character. So is Kefka good or not good upon his release in global? I'm going to say he's good with that HP clutch, with those clutch debuffs. I mean, that HP silence, because he could definitely be useful to avoid some sticky situations that you might find yourself in. He is not a must pull, so if you're going to be waiting until he gets his level 60 to pull for his weapons, that is perfectly fine. At least you'll have a copy of his 15 CP if you clear his event, so then that way you'll have him at least for those clutch debuffs with the HP silence and blind. So overall, I'd say he's good, but not a must-have at this point in global if you decide to pull. Alright guys, that is going to be it on Kefka, good or not good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing to this channel, as I do a lot of content on Dissidia Opera Omnia. Hit that like button and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, once I upload a new video, you guys are instantly notified. Once again, my name is 40 the Broadway Saiyan. Stay tuned for the next video, and to Mahal, everyone.